New York Times article, February 5th, 2017, a resettlement mission upended by the sweep of the president's pen. "I'm fine," Miss Mastro Pietro said at one point. She paused. "I'm not really fine," she said. "It's bad." Over the years, the satellite office of the Church World Service, a nationwide nonprofit that works on contract with the State Department's resettlement program, has helped thousands of refugees find homes in Lancaster, a south-central Pennsylvania city with a reputation for tolerance. Its work has nurtured an ethnic jumble: Somali, Iraqi, Syrian, Congolese, Nepalese, that has diversified the local culture, provided a plentiful workforce, and yes, challenged the school system. Then Mr. Trump won the presidential election on a platform that included promises of an immigration crackdown, and Ms. Mastro Pietro waited. A week after his inauguration, the president issued his order, closed the borders to refugees for 120 days, indefinitely block entry to Syrian families fleeing mayhem, and bar entry for 90 days to citizens, refugees or otherwise, from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, all Muslim majority nations. Ms. Mastro Pietro, slight with auburn hair, has worked to resettle refugees in Lancaster since 1987. Both the joy and stress of the job are conveyed in her face. Who knows how many times she's tried to explain that refugees undergo a long and rigorous vetting process, that delays cause background checks and medical clearances to expire, forcing applicants to restart the entire process, that welcoming those fleeing war and strife is what makes America America. Sitting that Friday afternoon in her agency's slice of a 134-year-old former market building, Ms. Mastro Pietro struggled to hear the president's words, the sound of her computer going in and out. But he said what he said. She dimmed her office lights and went home to a difficult night. So one of the biggest responsibilities for leaders today is to help guide their team through difficulties. And today we're going to talk about leading through tough times. Welcome to The Behaviorist with Work Wisdom, where we help you adapt high-performance mindsets, behaviors, communication, and culture. I'm your host, Sarah Colantonio. Today, our guest is Sheila Mastro Pietro, the director of Church World Service here in Lancaster, and coincidentally, one of my very favorite people in Lancaster. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here. This is awesome.
Okay, great. And also, this is the first day in our new office where we're having our very first podcast recording. So this is like the maiden voyage.
First.
Yeah. So I saw in the paper and on your social media that you had an event yesterday in Penn Square. What was that and how did it go?
It was, we are all welcome. Welcome for all.
Yeah.
It was a welcome for all rally, and it is simply because the current administration recently came out and said they are considering zeroing out the refugee program, which would be a disaster for the many, many millions of refugees. Yeah. So we had a really good showing of community members. We are always hoping to get people who are maybe not our, we have strong support in the city of Lancaster, but we want to get it out there to other people in the county, others who don't know about refugees. Lancaster City on Market Day is a good time to do that. So we had lots of people with signs, and it was amazing. A lot of old friends and new people, too. Mm-hmm. It went really well. We had 2 refugee speakers, both of whom, a Syrian gentleman and a woman from Gaza, both of whom had been separated from their families because of the president's ban on refugees. So they spoke very movingly. I mean, brought me to tears at the time. We also had a faith leader. It was a more conservative faith leader than we usually have, but we want to reach people. We have many supporters out in the county who come from conservative churches who support refugee resettlement. They don't necessarily, their agenda is not always our agenda, but in their support of refugees, we're grateful for that.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like it was well attended, and it looked really exciting. It looked like there was a lot.
There was about
there.
150 people came, and there were signs, and people from market would stop by to see what was going on, and we had a stand. Our big ask there, as even today, is call your congressman.
Yeah.
Lloyd Smucker, and Bob Casey, and Pat Toomey, our senators. It's important that they support. I mean, Lloyd Smucker has said in the newspaper that he doesn't want the program zeroed out. So the president, before he sets that determination, consults with Congress. It's very important that all congressmen let the president know how their constituents feel.
Okay. All right, that's good. I have a question later on in our podcast, so we might come back to that.
That's fine.
All right. So, Sheila, we've talked about just one-on-one about the difficulty summarized in that New York Times article that I started out the podcast with, and the impact that this administration has had on the organization and on refugees. So since that article came out, that was in 2017, what would you say, and this might be a really hard question, what would you say since then has been the toughest thing to manage?
The toughest thing. I thought that was very bad when we heard that. The problem is it hasn't let up. This administration hasn't let up on the refugee program. It's almost like they want to close the borders and don't allow anybody else in. So at the time, I was thinking back on 2001, 9/11, and I thought that was a bad time because it was like everyone thought people from afar, foreigners caused this, and we don't want any more foreigners to come in. So refugee arrivals were low at that time, and it was difficult. We didn't know if it would come back, but it did come back. So when this happened, I thought, and I even said to my staff, we've seen this before. We can overcome this. You have to look at things on the spectrum of time. So, but it hasn't gotten that much better. There have been small victories, but the thing that's really difficult is keeping staff. I want to say keeping morale up, but it's more like having them recognize the passion that why they came to this work, and to see that there's a lot more to be done. There still are clients to serve, and on top of that, on top of doing that job, we have to save the refugee program. We have to advocate for the program. So, and that's not an easy task when you have this administration who are, constantly chipping away at the refugee program. So keeping morale up is difficult, and keeping people on staff. I'm sure that happens to a lot of leaders when they're going through a crisis.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds severe. So you alluded to this a little bit. You've been doing this work for some time. How long have you been?
It's 32 years now.
All right. So what keeps you going with this flow, ebb and flow of like difficulty and then victory, and how do you keep going?
To be honest, there were in the very beginning, in the first 5 years, I'll say I thought about maybe there's something else for me, and I would think about different avenues I might take. But this work is so interesting to me. I mean, you have to be connected to what's going. You are connected to what's going on in the world, and it's so rewarding. I think a lot of people in the social work field know that you can get burnt out. It's the helping gene. But this work is actually, you see people come and succeed, and they've been through the worst, and they've had tragic stories, but they come here only to start anew. So to me, it's very uplifting work. And it's so interesting, and you meet so many interesting people. That pretty much
that'll do it.
When I thought about what else would I do that I could have all this, and it's like nothing else really interested me. We say that in the refugee resettlement field, like once you get in, you might go to another nonprofit, but you don't get out of this work.
Wow. Okay. That's so great.
Once you're really in.
It keeps you here. Okay. So many leaders, they'll have, practices or mindsets that help them have success. And so as a respected and resilient leader in Lancaster, what do you do what do you believe, or what do you do to have the success that you have?
So what I always go back to is what I believe in, and I go back to the mission of CWS, and that's all I do when I'm confused or unsure of myself or lacking confidence. I go back to what is our mission, because I know in the beginning I believe in that mission, and it's really, are we serving our clients? So whenever I think of that and I look at that and I think, yeah, this is what I want to do, and this is how I do it, and then I can move forward.
Okay. Wow. What has required the most courage from you in being the director at CWS?
Well, the work that we do is controversial.
Yeah.
It wasn't always so, but I was thinking recently about when I first started in this work. And believe it or not, we didn't do anything in the city of Lancaster, which is now obviously so supportive of our work. And the city's obviously more liberal, more progressive. Mm-hmm. But all of our work was in the county, and not only out in the county of Lancaster, but in counties like Northumberland and Berks County, and really out there counties where, they wouldn't necessarily, nowadays you see how controversial it's become, how divisive. Mm-hmm. But when I would go out there, it would be because someone at the national level of those church denominations wanted the churches to know about this work.
Okay.
So I would go out there. So it was kind of scary because even then it wasn't well known.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as divisive, obviously, but people didn't know about it, and you never knew who you're going to be talking to. So when you started bringing in refugees and from Africa or Southeast Asia, and people thinking, no, we don't need that here. So it was kind of scary to go and talk to people like that, and not knowing. And after I would speak, have people come up to talk to me, and I had no idea really what side they were on and what they were going to say.
Yeah.
But it also made me think there was that unknown, but back then people were willing to listen.
Yeah.
So it was pretty different. And now if people know what I'm talking about, they just kind of don't show up because they're not interested.
Yeah.
But that was a little scary back then. And even now it is very divisive, and I have to think twice sometimes, but it always goes back to what's best for our clients.
Right.
So if it's going to anger somebody, I just have to put it out there anyway.
Yeah.
So it can make you maybe not popular sometimes.
Yeah.
But you have to say what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It just sounds like you own it, that it's the thing that motivates you, keeps you going, gives you courage.
Yeah, it does. It does. And when I see the people the clients that we work with too, you got to say, everything they went through, and they love this country. They come here and love this country. Mm-hmm. So how can I not stand up in what I believe in? That's what they did.
Yeah. Wow. What advice do you have for leaders who are leading their teams through tough times? That's a hard question too. I know.
That is. I always, it almost goes back to that same thing.
Yeah.
You have to believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have to have that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, maybe you're in the wrong field.
Yeah.
But you look to that. Is it best for our clients or our mission? Mm-hmm. And if you can say that it is, that the bottom line, maybe if you're a for-profit and you're looking at the bottom line, is going to serve our bottom line, then you know what you have to do. Yeah. And also follow your heart. It's got to be that too. It goes back to believing in what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. Follow your heart.
Okay. So this is a kind of a personal question. How do you rebound from disappointment? What do you do? How have you managed it? And even rebounded or been strengthened by it?
I want to say that I talked to my husband. He gives me excellent feedback.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, really I do. There are disappointing days, and it's not all about the government. You could have a problem with staff. Mm-hmm. You could have a day that you just can't get everything done, or you felt like you made the wrong statement or you did something wrong. Yeah. So it's good to talk it out with someone you trust, and he's really good for that. Shout out to Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, he can. I mean, and he doesn't mind telling me if there's a better way to do it, but he does it in such a kind way.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And yeah, but more often than not, he's just like, yeah, you did the right thing. It's okay. You know, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
You really need that. You really need somebody that you can talk to.
Okay. All right, here's kind of the last question. What's the best piece of advice you've been given that you can share with our listeners on this topic of leading through tough times?
Leading through tough times. Well, you know, I thought of something, and it goes back to what I've been saying all along about the work. You have to believe in yourself. And one time there was a woman who supported everything we do from a church that had worked with us. And she sent me a quote that I'm going to read to you. It's Frederick Buchner. Mm-hmm. He's a theologian, a Presbyterian minister, I think, and a essayist and a novelist. But it is, vocation is the place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need. Mm. And that really spoke to me, and it really made me feel like I chose right. You know, I did that right. I love that. And again, I've been saying that kind of throughout this podcast, but it's that, you know, you can be a great leader if you are doing something that you're passionate about, you totally believe in.
Okay.
And I kind of feel like you also have to have all the facts.
Yeah.
It's not totally emotional. You have to know that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. So you have to kind of research it, and you know you're doing the right thing, and then just go for it.
Okay. Research, logic, but pathos too. Yeah.
Okay. I studied philosophy. I was a philosophy major, so the logic's got to be there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but you need that heart. You got to have the heart in it too.
Beautiful. I also want to ask, do you have a plug for CWS? Is there anything that you need from us to support you as listeners, as people in the community? How can we support your organization?
Well, the biggest thing that you could do right now is to support refugee resettlement. And we are going to put up on our Facebook page, we have to call your congressman. Okay. It is so important that, because we have done this before through advocacy, we have changed the course of what this administration wanted, and we can do it again.
Okay.
Call your congressman, tell them that you support refugee resettlement, you don't want it zeroed out, and actually you want 95,000 people to be admitted, because that's the average number of people who have been admitted since the beginning of the program, average per year.
Okay.
And that could be done. So we have a script, we have the phone numbers, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be posted tomorrow on our Facebook page.
Okay, perfect.
So that's what we really, really, really want people to do. We don't want it zeroed out where too many people to help.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's great. That is very concrete. So go on the Facebook page, get the script, get the number, call Lloyd, let him know. All right.
Call, tweet, email. Visit the office. Yeah. He's home the whole month of August.
Oh, that's right. Everybody get that? Okay. I am so grateful to you for being part of this movement of helping world changers in the workplace, but also being a world changer yourself. Thank you for that. We are, and I do not use this phrase lightly, we are blessed to have you in this community. Thank you, listeners, for downloading The Behaviorist. We hope you'll subscribe. Reach out to us through our website, workwisdomllc.com. You can enjoy Work Wisdom Press and productions. You can ask questions and suggestions of topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes. We do have a custom where we leave you with a 1-minute wisdom by Anthony DeMello. And so for today, here it is. Calamities can bring growth and enlightenment, said the teacher. And she explained it thus. Each day, a bird would shelter in the withered branches of a tree that stood in the middle of a vast deserted plain. One day a whirlwind uprooted the tree, forcing the poor bird to fly 100 miles in search of shelter, till it finally came to a forest of fruit-laden trees. And she concluded, if the withered tree had survived, nothing would have induced the bird to give up its security and fly.